Hello, I'm the Angry Spork. We've looked at a lot of 80s properties in this show, but one show in particular that is arguably kind of an attempt to copy the success of G.I. Joe is one maybe you haven't heard of, but one I do remember watching when I was a kid. That show was called...
The Centurions!
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Set in a near-future world of advanced technology, the Centurions followed three guys. Max Ray, their de facto leader.
Brilliant Sea Operations Commander.
Jake Rockwell.
Rugged Land Operations Specialist.
And Ace McCloud.
Daring Air Operations Expert.
But everything changed when the Fire Centurion attacked.
Wearing exoframes, which were specialized bodysuits with sockets on them, they could be outfitted with weapon systems specific to their area of expertise, and the situation at hand all sent and retrieved by teleportation. While the components could appear and attach in a given scene, many times there was a separate sequence showing each part attaching to the suit, because recycled animation is really cost-effective.
Essentially, it was the Sailor Moon transformation sequence, but targeted for males aged 6 to 14.
Their gear was kept in an orbital base called Skyvault, and handled by Crystal Kane, chief operator of the transport system. Though she doesn't just send what's requested, she'll send what she thinks is best in a pinch, and monitor field operations, so while she's not one of the main force, she serves a purpose, other than being hit on by McCloud. Oh, and I guess animals make for some kid appeal, because Jake had a dog named Shadow, and Crystal was often seen with an orangutan named Lucy.
Lucy had advanced degrees in botanical engineering, political science, and poop flinging.
The team usually contended with Doc Terror, a cyborg bent on world domination through converting humanity into his robot slaves. Because I guess free will is a pain to deal with, but a minion that gets a 404 error, you can just recycle. He's primarily aided by Hacker, a cyborg minion that is strong and loyal, but perhaps a few circuits shy of a laptop. The show was produced by Ruby Spears, animated by Nippon Sunrise Studio 7, and actually has some comics cred, with design and concept contributions made by Gil Kane and Jack the King Kirby.
Of course, when I was a kid, I didn't know there were toys of the show, even if it's obvious now, and I certainly didn't know there was a miniseries comic. So, with that extra long intro out of the way, I'm taking issue with the Centurions. So let's see if this comic lives up to the phrase Power Xtreme, or is more like low battery.
The cover is effective for a number 1, with the main characters geared up and heading out, presumably to battle. Well, except for Jake, who's apparently busy rocking out.
There's an earthquake that's gonna devastate that town. Jake, you're the land operations expert. What do you mind? I've got Bohemian Rhapsody playing, and I'm about to get to the headbanging part. You can't be serious. This is why the water guy is our leader.
Written by Bob Rozakis, with art by Don Heck, Al Vey, Tom Ziuko, and special consultant Chucky Rozakis, we begin in northern Alaska, where Doc Terror has sent his Doom drones to retrieve unwilling subjects to convert into cyborg minions. The Inuit people are defended by the Centurions, who each have descriptive panels off to the side, each designated leader, oddly enough, in one respect or another. Maybe that just means whichever field the danger is in, that's who's in charge? Also, did they intend for Ace McCloud to look so freaking creepy?
Sleep tight, kids. Ace McCloud is out there protecting you.
And Rockwell's picture could pass for Ben Grimm. Either form. Anyway, the team seems to be destroying the robots with ease, Jake taking particular delight in the fight, saying he loves a challenge. In this case, finding new ways to destroy the evil machines, like breaking the ice beneath them and letting them sink into the bottom of the frozen waters. Because we all know water can't get polluted if it's cold, right? Kinda weird considering the show tended to have positive environmental messages. But anyway, Max tries to get his comrade to tone it down, but apparently his sonic blasters are too loud.
You mean 2 big guns firing over his head might interfere with his hearing? You don't say!
Weird. Just a page ago he seemed to hear them just fine when he was excusing his actions. Also, those sonic blasters look more like regular lasers to me, but whatever. Crystal can't even reach him over the comms, which makes me wonder if Rockwell has either gone deaf or turned off his radio. Max fires a blast into the water, somehow directing the resultant splash to wash over Jake, freezing him and halting his fighting frenzy, which seems to be a regular thing given the dialogue. It seems some of the Inuit villagers had been turned into cyborgs already, but hidden behind the army of drones.
I feel better knowing that advanced technology like that is in the hands of someone so eager to blow up robots that he easily disregards his surroundings and any victims in the area, because at least he knows about erosion and tectonic plates.
I should point out that the comic uses the term Eskimo, which, while possibly more common back in 1987, isn't as much now and considered offensive to the people it references, and declining in use even when this came out, so I won't be using it. Also, Inuit is just more accurate. The affected villagers are apparently already frozen. Not sure how, maybe by the same thing that changed them, but moving on. So Ace picks up one to take back to Skyvault, to try returning him back to normal, with a cleanup crew coming for the rest. Ace drops his icy passenger, because apparently one of the drones was becoming active again, so he blows him up, narrowly catches the villager, and calls for transport to the base.
That seemed unnecessary.
The bots were apparently easily destroyed, and he could have left it to one of his teammates. Not to mention, he's got a lot of guns on that suit, so why did he have to drop the guy?
Shortly, on the orbital base, McCloud is pestering Crystal for a kiss, because this is what passed as fun flirtation in 80s animation. She tells him not right now, which isn't a total rejection, but still not great behavior on the air specialist's part. She relents so long as he closes his eyes and tricks him into kissing Lucy the orangutan.
Someone's kissing me. It must be a beautiful woman.
It's explained that examining the cyborg victim is slow and tedious, much like previous attempts. Meanwhile, Jake is giving Ace grief for kissing the ape. Look who's talking. The man who dates rejects from the Miss Ugly pageant.
So if it's a contest to see who's the ugliest, wouldn't that mean that the rejects are conventionally attractive?
Face it, Romeo. Crystal just isn't interested in you.
I can get any woman I want, and the woman I want is Crystal Kane.
One of our heroes, ladies and gentlemen. Doesn't a line like that perfectly fit a face like this? God, jeez, it gets worse every time I look at it.
They check in on several physicians working on the victim they brought aboard, while musing a preference to use any data they collect to take out Terror's base in the Arctic, but it's considered an independent nation by the World Council, so they can't do much. The 1980s, where a supervillain could terrorize cities and threaten the planet with impunity because they owned a few hundred acres of land. What are the other countries going to do, join together and wipe them off the face of the earth? Like that's ever happened.
Not to mention that this guy who has his own sovereign lands also puts doom in the names of his evil machinery. I think a certain Latvian dictator is going to consult Matt Murdock about certain legal action.
An alarm sounds, so they rush to the control room. I guess the only room with a big screen TV. Some space station. Doc Terror is ordering the world to surrender to him in 1 hour, or he'll set off an electromagnetic pulse that will disable computers around the world and destabilize civilization. Because this era of advanced technology hasn't come up with any safeguards against EMPs, I guess. He'd need a nuclear explosion to cause such an event, and it just so happens he's launched 3 missiles from his base, each going to different locations. One in low orbit above China, another submerging into Lake Michigan, and the last one touching down in Botswana.
Maybe Doc Terror's plan is to hope that they send the wrong specialist to each missile and they won't know what to do out of their own element.
They each transport to their designated target, and first we see McCloud take on the airborne projectile, uttering the catchphrase, "Power Xtreme!" and being grafted to his orbital interceptor gear. Of course, different weapon sets would need different classification. How else can you pick them out at the toy aisle? When he intercepts the missile, it's turned into an aircraft carrier. You know, like missiles do.
It's a transformer!
3 attack drones fly out, and hoping to take out at least 2 in one shot, Ace fires a massive blast. While he manages to get one strafer, the other's AI maneuvered it away. He laments not picking another set of gear because now he's out of heavy firepower and would be a sitting duck if he swapped out now.
You only had one shot with that thing? what about that gun barrel on your chest? Does your equipment suck, or are you just losing oxygen at that altitude?
Ace takes the chance that he can outthink his enemies' pre-programmed brains, flying toward them as they both fly closer to him. Before Crystal can teleport him back to base, the drones collide and explode, Ace narrowly flying to safety because they weren't programmed to stay out of each other's way.
Oh, so Doc Terror's an idiot that can't program his weapons, is that it? Because I would think making sure your attack bots in the sky don't crash into each other or a non-enemy target would be one of the first considerations, but hey, I'm not an evil mad scientist cyborg from the 1980s version of the 21st century.
As he goes to inspect to see if anyone's on board the airship, we go to Africa, where Jake, I loves me shooting robots Rockwell, dons the Hornet gear, which comes with chopper propellers.
Wait. The land guy gets to fly? Now this comic just doesn't make any bloody sense.
The missile he's after is converted into a fort, because why not at this point? Inside is Hacker, Terror's right-hand goon, who grounds Jake in one shot. Crystal quickly swaps him to the detonator suit, which seems awfully inconvenient if he needs to get somewhere fast, like the bathroom on chilly night. Hacker then blasts a bunch of trees, causing them to fall and bury Rockwell.
Save me, vague expertise in land!
With what I imagine is the dumbest look he could manage, Hacker is thrilled to inform his master of his victory, only for the Centurion to free himself using his sonic thrusters, which I guess are silent given the lack of sound effects. And to show you how serious a threat this evil goon is, he hits Jake with an energy blast that does nothing. It seems to barely faze him as he counterattacks, blasting Hacker to bits, and discovering it was a robot duplicate the entire time.
Aww, I thought I killed a guy. Then I could finally sit at the cool kids' table.
He inspects the fort, finding it completely empty. Crystal reports that the airship McLeod inspected was likewise vacant, and she'll transport them to Max Ray to back him up. By this time, he's already underwater in his depth charger gear, apparently needing Crystal to direct him because Lake Michigan is so polluted. Told that his buddies are beaming in, he suggests they remain on standby. One of us getting covered with this gunk is more than enough. Probably take a week to clean this outfit.
Which is a real shame because Centurion prom is in 5 days.
There aren't any drone guards, but there is a force field protecting the rocket, one that he blasts with his cannons only to be propelled back. He tries a torpedo, but it just bounces off, with enough force that he needs Crystal to warn the other two that it's headed their way.
Worst case scenario, the fight crazy dude and the one that can't take no for an answer get blown up. I mean, the show introduced 2 other Centurions, so it hardly kills the dynamic. Just 2 doofuses.
He plants a deep-sea mine near the missile, a potentially fatal action, but one that might stop Terror's plan. Taking risks is what I get paid for.
You're starting to sound like Ace.
Whoa, now there's a scary thought.
Although, if you want, I could start periodically hitting on you, if I survive this. Hello?
He swims away, and after 15 seconds the mine detonates, having the intended effect of creating an opening for Ray to swim under the rocket. He saw how the weapon was lying in the mud, not just floating there, meaning the force field didn't encompass it entirely. Using all available power in his thrusters, he pushes the rocket out of the water for Ace to destroy.
Tarnation! This one was a fake too!
You guys do know you're after a nuclear weapon, right? Why was your plan to blow the thing up? Aside from killing yourselves and people within God only knows how big of a radius from the fallout, it would have caused the EMP you're supposed to prevent!
All the missiles turned out to be a distraction for the Centurions, with the hour almost up and the World Council President ready to surrender to Doc Terror. Playing a hunch, Max has the team beamed back to Skyvault, where he interrupts the doctors working to restore the Inuit cyborg, and takes their patient from the operating table.
Stop, Ray! You'll kill him!
My mustache will never be as amazing as Tom Selleck's. I can either get therapy and work through that, or I can kill something, and I don't see any therapists around here, do you?
Carrying the cyborg to the transporter pad, Max orders Crystal to beam them both as far out into space as she can. It's not specifically stated here, something you're gonna have to figure out through context clues, but the teleporters won't work on anything but their gear or someone wearing their exoframes, and there isn't time for Ray to put on a spacesuit or for them to put the cyborg into one of their frames. With the countdown nearing 0, Crystal does as instructed, sending Jake and the Borg out into space, waits 3 seconds for them to separate, then brings Ray back on board before their bionic patient goes kablooey.
It is worth noting that someone could survive 15 seconds in space 5 times longer than the water specialist. I'm not saying they'd be a fun 15 seconds, but...
And funnily enough, the same character was in space for an extended amount of time in the 3rd episode of the series.
I can only survive in space for a few minutes.
Yeah, not quite. Though he has his gear on, maybe that's why he thought that. They get their chilly leader under some blankets as he explains what just happened. That wasn't an Inuit villager turned into a cyborg, it was just a robot, like the fake hacker Rockwell encountered. Terror's plan was that the Centurions would waste time chasing dummy missiles, and the doctors wouldn't realize the fake in time. When it exploded, it destroyed Skyvault, causing the EMP intended.
Yep, we just got confirmation from our cleanup crew in Alaska. All those people we thought were cyborg victims were really just robot bombs. Incidentally, our cleanup crew is going to need to get cleaned up by a new cleanup crew.
The comic ends with Crystal giving Max a kiss on the cheek, much to Ace's chagrin, but who cares, while Doc Terror vows that one day the Centurion's luck will run out, and he'll rule the planet, saying this apparently while watching them from his base.
You'd think a facility like Skyvault would give you the ability to shut off your webcam. That was the Centurions' #1, and it was okay for a product of its time.
As mentioned before, there is some racially inaccurate terminology that, while I don't endorse the use of it if it's insulting to the Inuit people, I can understand if the writer wasn't aware of that at the time, as it can take a while for some words to fall into obscurity, especially if it's commonly used, or in this case, misused. Like with Ace McCloud's hitting on the woman that, when you think about it, could teleport him into the middle of a desert wasteland if she wanted, your mileage is going to vary if you can overlook something that wasn't intended to be offensive. While Ace does come off like a bit of a jerk that can't take a hint, he is all talk, and Crystal doesn't seem threatened or insulted by it, so it's not that different from, say, Rogue and Gambit from the X-Men cartoon.
Though it's worth bearing in mind that they're written like that in a fictional story. Ace's actions aren't something to undertake in a real-world scenario. Because who knows if someone you're hitting on doesn't have Crystal's patience and does teleport you into the vacuum of space.
The story's premise is solid. The villain sends out decoys so the only ones that can stop him don't realize they're wasting their time. But even if you forget why they wanted to detonate a missile they thought had a nuclear payload, and I don't think I can, Max's realization seems to come out of nowhere. Even if you assume that he was told about the fake hacker his comrade faced in between panels, it doesn't do much to explain how he figured out the Inuit cyborg was a bomb in disguise. Early on, he made a point about paying attention to your surroundings, looking at all the angles, but it feels more like we were just told that he figured it out, not so much how. And while I joked about it earlier, all those other victims we saw frozen earlier were probably bombs too. Otherwise, Ace picks the one Terra wanted him to, by chance. The art is, for the most part, on par for comics of the time. The machines are nicely detailed, the characters are close, if not exact, to their animated counterparts, though there were a few coloring errors here and there, and Ace sometimes looking a lot creepier than I think the artist had intended.
These characters are largely archetypes, with not a lot of depth given to them, be they hero or villain. This comic was about promoting a toy line, and it kinda shows, with some cleverness overshadowed by convenience or just bewildering stupidity. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.